untightledchapter.com. And I know what you're thinking, do I need another skirt in my life? Absolutely, and this might be the one for you. So let's make this simple paper bag linen skirt. We've sewn a lot of skirts here together on my channel, and if you've never made a skirt before, I recommend that you start with my video for a simple skirt because it is, well, really simple. And today we're gonna take your skills up just a little bit to an intermediate level, and we're gonna add this cool elastic paper bag top to it. And it's called a paper bag skirt because it kind of looks like one when you cinch it up like that. So here's what you need. About 2 yards of linen fabric and 3/4 inch wide elastic. You can make this skirt from a variety of fabrics, but what I like about using linen is that it is just so light and airy and breezy and hangs really beautifully. I also made it in this awesome red wine color. It's such a fun fabric to wear for all different seasons. And I love linen so much that I decided to go through my bins of kids' old clothing that I just can't part with and show you some projects that I've made over the years. You might recognize some of these if you have followed along. This little dress that I made for my daughter Lucy, oh my goodness, this was like one of my first blog posts. Crazy to think. Some fun little shorts that I made for my son Owen. Love sewing shorts. And then these little pants, which I think was like one of my second or third blog posts back in the day. So I love sewing with linen, and you can find it in most fabric shops. You can find it as 100% linen, or sometimes it's a linen cotton blend, or different types of blends. All of those will work great for this project. And then it comes in different weights too. You can see this one is quite heavy and kind of floppy, whereas the one I'm going to use is very lightweight and airy. This one I found online, and I will leave a link for you because it is just so fun in this plaid. I really love it. And if you want an even more really customized skirt, I do have this pattern for the Anywhere skirt on my website, and this will give you a flat waistband compared to what we're gonna sew today, which is an elastic waistband. Both are great options, but I do like that this one's pretty adjustable. So let's take some measurements and start cutting out our fabric. We're going to cut a front and a back to our skirt so that we have some side seams. And if you were making a simple skirt and wanted to cut one large piece of fabric, you could do that. But we're gonna make 2 little changes. We're gonna angle the sides of our skirt, and I wanna add some pockets because I just think a skirt is so much better with pockets. So we're gonna start by taking a measurement. You wanna measure your waist, and you wanna measure your true waist, or wherever the skirt is going to fit. I like to wear mine kind of high, like where my belt is right now. So I'm gonna measure that. I'm gonna say 28. Or if you want your skirt to hang down here, measure at your hips, wherever you want it to hang. So I'm gonna write this down. My waist is 28. And then what we're cutting is going to be 2 rectangles. So you could just say, this is gonna be 28 and that's gonna be 28, which makes your skirt double your waist size. But I'm gonna make it a little more full than that. I'm gonna take 1.25 times my waist. And you can do this whatever measurement you want. This does not have to be exactly what I'm saying. 1.25 times 28 gives me 35 inches. So this is going to be 35 inches right here. Now on the top, I said we wanted to angle it. So I'm gonna go back to my waist size up here. I just need to subtract those 2. 35 minus 28 is 7. So I have 7 inches that I want to angle this. So divide that by 2, 3.5. I know we're doing a lot of math, but you'll get the concept here. So I am going to cut my fabric like this. This is gonna be my 3.5. You get how this is going. Basically, we want to have more fullness at the bottom and a little more sleek at the top, so there's less bulk around our waist. So I already have my fabric pieces cut to be 35 inches wide. Oh, and how long do you want your skirt to be? That's another question. For my fabric, I didn't have a lot because it wasn't as wide as I had hoped. So I'm just going with whatever length is left here, which I think is about 20 something, let's see, 26 inches. But you could make it even longer. When I made that red wine colored skirt, I made it like 32 or 33 inches. That hits kind of at my calf. All those looks are super cute. If you want a real maxi skirt, you can make it even longer or even shorter. Choices, people, choices. Okay, so I've got 2 layers of fabric here, my front and the back of my skirt, 35 inches. So I'm gonna measure in 3.5 inches from each side, right at the very top here. The same thing on the other side. And then I'm gonna take my yardstick. If you don't have a yardstick, you could even just fold your fabric over and press it, or just use another ruler. And I'm gonna draw a line to make this angle. So that when we're done, we have a trapezoid. See, you didn't know that you were coming to math class today. But I am always telling, I've been substitute teaching at our school district, and I'm always telling the kids how much math I use for my real-time job, which is doing this kind of stuff. Circles, trapezoids, math, 1.25 times, pi, we've done all those things here together. Okay, and then just cut it out. Now we've got our two skirt pieces. Now let's cut our waistband piece and our pockets. For our waistband, we want to cut a separate waistband piece. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably like, why doesn't she just fold it down like we've done before in a simple skirt? Well, if you think about your math, that's not going to work right. If it's angled like this and you fold it down, it's not going to be angled like this and not reach the edge of our skirt. So we're going to cut a rectangular waistband that when folded in half, folds onto itself. So I have already cut that here. 28 inches wide, just like my skirt pieces. Now, how wide should you make it? I want it to end up being about 3 inches, just because I think that looks cute. You could do it any size you want. So 3 for the front, 3 for the back, plus a little wiggle room for seam allowance. I'm gonna cut it about 6.5 inches. So when it's all said and done, it's gonna look like that. Okay, I've got 2 of those already cut. I'm gonna set that aside. Now we're gonna cut out our pocket pieces. And I have my fabric here. I've got 2 layers so that I can cut out 4 pockets. And I am using a pocket pattern piece that is from my Anywhere skirt, that pink skirt I showed you at the beginning. If you don't have that pattern, if you don't have a pocket pattern in general, it's so easy. Just place your hand down, trace around, you've got a general pocket pattern piece. You just want a straight side that gets sewn into your side seam. So I can fit 4 pocket pieces there. Now my fabric is the same on both sides, meaning there's not really a right or a wrong side to this particular fabric. But if yours did have a right or wrong side, you want to make sure that you're cutting mirror images of each other. And you don't have to use this exact same fabric as your skirt for your pocket. You could use something different that kind of, a matchy-matchy fabric or some fun surprise that only is in there when you use your pockets. I like little things like that. Okay, but you probably don't want to use anything that's a different weight of fabric, otherwise it might kind of weigh your skirt down. There we go. Now just cut these out. Okay, we're ready to, almost threw that away. We're ready to start assembling our skirt. Let's start with our pockets. I do have a video here on my channel called How to Sew Pockets into a Skirt. So if you need more details than I'm gonna go into now, make sure you check out that video. We are gonna start by placing them down 3.5 inches. And you could do more than that, you could do 4 inches. I just find that 3.5 works great on this skirt, so I'm using my ruler. And the nice thing about sewing with a pattern, a fabric that has lines or a grid like this, is that it makes it really easy to keep everything in the same line as I'm going with both sides of my skirt. So I'm gonna pin that in place, come over here and do the same thing with this one. Measuring down 3.5 inches, I'm gonna start at the top of my pocket, right there at that spot. Pin that in place. And then let's do the same thing with the other half of our skirt. Now we're gonna go to our machine, and all we're going to sew right now is the 2 pockets to the skirt. We're just gonna sew this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Pretty simple. Forward and back stitch. And I'm just sewing the pocket area, not the whole side of the skirt. Cut my threads. I love this thread cutter on my Baby Lock. Brilliant machine. It's brilliant. I tell ya. I know I say it every time, but I really do like it. Okay, doing the other side, the other pocket. sewn both the pockets to the one side of the skirt. Now I'm sewing the back side or front side of the skirt. You're with me. Okay, let's go back to our iron. Now just press out that seam, get it nice and flat on all 4 pockets. Okay, and while we're here at the iron, let's just prep our waistband for the next step also. I have 2 pieces here, just like my skirt, and I'm gonna press them each 1/4 of an inch first. Like that. Flip this over, do the same thing on the other side. And these are just memory creases that we are prepping for later steps. And then fold this whole thing in half. Okay, do the same thing with the other waistband piece. I've got everything pressed. I'm gonna set this aside and we are going to pin things together. So since we're right here with our waistband, let's just pin these 2 together. We're gonna open up those little folds that we just made and make sure that you have this going the right direction so that your waistband is the same on both sides. If you have a print that you can, tell. And open all those up. We're gonna pin this together. And when we go to our machine, we're gonna sew a side seam around our waistband. Boop, boop, the other side. Just like we're gonna do on our skirt pieces. And if you had fabric that was long enough, you could cut your waistband casing piece as one long piece and just have one side seam. That's fine too. Mine was just a little shorter and I didn't have that option. So work with your fabric. Okay, now take the skirt pieces and with right sides together, let's see, that's the wrong side. Let's go right sides. This is, like I said, this is kind of the fun part. Okay, we got that. And we're gonna lay this one right on top. And now these pockets that we sewed have become part of our side seam. So instead of our side seam just going straight, our side seam is now a little detour. And then those pockets get tucked right inside. So you wanna match up all these little lines of my fabric, if your fabric matters. If you're sewing with a solid fabric, I mean, you still wanna line it up nicely, but it's probably not as imperative. So then when I get to the pocket, I'm gonna pin around the pocket. Now flip this and pin the other side as well. I'm all done pinning. I was kind of liberal with my pins there, but I feel like that helps on this part of it. So just to remind you, we're gonna go to our machine and we're gonna sew. We're not sewing in that area. We're sewing detour around, come back down the line, okay? Let's go to our machine. This time we want to sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and that makes sure that the 1/4 inch that we did on our pocket is a little bit enclosed. You'll see what I mean when we finish this. So do a start and stop, forward and back stitch at the beginning. And then I'm approaching the pocket area. Sometimes it's hard to gauge where your 3/8 inch mark is when you get to the little corner like this. So just do your best, and the more you sew, the more you'll figure out where that is. Pivot and turn like that. And then go around the curve. And when you're sewing on curves, it can be, hard to keep it really straight. If you feel like you're going too fast, I like to adjust my speed control up here. My baby lock has that option. If not, just do your best, take your time. And with woven fabrics, you can kind of just keep turning it as you go. If this was a knit fabric, you wouldn't want to do that because it would start to stretch it. You could just lift your presser foot if you needed to. Okay, we're back from the pocket, we're back in line. And by doing 3/8 inch, I wanna go past this little pocket line right there. There we go, pivot and turn again. And then resume sewing down that side seam. Back stitch, cut your threads, and then let's sew the other side. I'm gonna start at the bottom of my skirt just because that's the side, you know, I pinned it on the same side, but it doesn't matter if you start from the top or the bottom. We're all done with the skirt part. Now just grab the waistband and let's sew those two side seams also. Same thing, 3/8 inch seam allowance. Just make sure that those little creases are not creased over right now. That was just a preparatory thing. You want to unfold them. And now we are ready to put these two parts together. I've turned my skirt right side out and I want to show you how our little pocket looks. Here's the side seam of our skirt and right there, there's a little pocket. Isn't that so exciting? I love it. Now we have our waistband piece and this is going to feel like it's maybe a little backwards, but we're going to start by pinning the right side of our waistband to the wrong side of our skirt. And I know with this fabric, it's hard to tell which is right, which is wrong, but now that we've sewn a seam, this is now the right side and this is the wrong side. So the right side is going to match up with the wrong side. I know that feels weird, but it will work. Trust. Pin it right there. And then I'm gonna pin at the other side seam as well. There's a lot of gingham you're looking at here. Hopefully you can decipher what I'm doing. Okay, I'm done pinning. Let's go back to our machine. Okay, I'm just gonna follow along this little crease that we made right there, which it looks like on my machine is about 3/8 inch. So that's gonna work just fine. Back to my start point. I'm all done. Now we're gonna flip the waistband around to the other side. And now you can see this is going to fold over onto the right side of our skirt and everything is gonna look beautiful and polished. That's something I do love about sewing this kind of waistband is that all those seams are enclosed at the top, so it looks really great. So I'm pinning at the side seams just like we did before because I feel like that's always just a great place to start. And then I'm gonna pin around the rest of the waistband. And then when we pin to the back side, we are going to leave a small opening because this is where we're going to create a casing for our elastic. Now, you could make this skirt as simple as you want. You could just sew, you could just pull elastic through the casing as it is. You could use really wide elastic if you wanted to. What I think makes this skirt kind of fun is that we are going to sew we're gonna pull two different strings of elastic through. And that just kind of makes it, I don't know, it gives more cinchiness and little folds to the waistband. It just makes it, I don't know, adds more texture, looks a little more unique. So here's our back part. This is where I'm gonna leave my opening. So I'm gonna mark that with double pins so I don't forget, because believe me, when there's all this gingham being sewn in a big circle, it's easy to forget. Not that I've done that about 10 times. Now when we go back to our machine, we'll start at the start point, sew around and stop. And then I wanna show you what we're going to be doing with this elastic, because we'll do this at our machine as well. I have these two elastics here, and I'm gonna create my two casings, and then the leftover part at the top is what's gonna give it kind of that paper bag look. So since this is 3/4 inch wide elastic, I'm gonna sew each of those about 1 inch wide. And doesn't need to be exactly 1 inch. I'm gonna show you at my machine how I'm gonna use my elastic to just kind of gauge and measure as I'm going. So back to the machine. I'm at my double pins here, my start point. And I'm just sewing as close to this edge as I can get because I wanna leave as much room for the casing as I can. So forward and back stitch, and actually I'm gonna increase my stitch length a little bit just so that it's not so tight and it'll go a little faster. Try to hold everything flat as you're going. If you do get any, like let's say that your waistband was just a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, there is for sure room to fudge that in this because it's all gonna be gathered up. So you could just make a small little, pleat or fold here or there just to try to disguise it. Totally works. I'm to my stop point, do a forward and back stitch, cut my threads, and then I'm going to create my next casing. So take my elastic here, and you just want to make sure you give enough room that when you pull this through, it's not so tight that it's starting to get stuck and being really difficult. So I'm going to leave a gap again so I can get my elastic in and out. And I'm going to hold this right next to it just so I can start and see how wide I need to put that. Forward and back stitch. I'm not sewing on the elastic. I know it might look like that. Well, hopefully it doesn't. But I'm just using that to gauge where I'm sewing as I'm going. Okay, now that I got the hang of it, I think I can put that aside. Whoops. And sew this all the way around. I'm at the stop point, forward and back stitch, and then we're gonna do our second line of casing. So take my elastic again, that almost fell on the ground, and line that up as well. And I'm gonna sew that line right there. And for this one, we actually don't need to leave an opening on this one. It's actually one that we want to sew closed because it's our top seam now with the little paper bag stuff sticking up. And there we are. I just closed that seam off right there. Now we're gonna string the elastic through. I've got my 2 pieces of elastic here, and the length of these are my waist size, so 28 inches, but I knocked off about 1 inch because I feel like you just want it to cinch up real nice and stay up on your waist. So they're 27 inches. Then I have some safety pins. I'm going to place a safety pin on the end, and that's gonna help it get through the casing of our skirt. So come back to our little hole, the opening that we left there, and we're gonna start with the top casing first. So put it in there and then just keep pushing it through all the way around. And you wanna make sure nothing is getting twisted inside. When you get to the side seam, if you're having a hard time, just kind of push it down so that you're not pushing through the wrong layer of fabric. It'll make sense as you're going. Okay, then I also want to secure the other end of my elastic here so that I don't pull the whole thing through. So take another safety pin and we're going to secure the end right here. And then go back. Here we are. Just keep going all the way around. I'm already back to the beginning. Okay, so let's pull this out. Sorry, this is a little difficult to see all this all up in my gingham here. I mean, it's all kind of craziness. So pull this out. Okay, there we go. Now you would overlap these a few inches. I'm not gonna sew this yet. We're going to do the other part as well. Pin those two together. and just kind of adjust everything so that it's evenly spaced. Okay, look how cute that's looking already. Grab our next one, same routine. And then this time we're just gonna go into the bottom one. Okay, now it's really important, just like I keep saying, you don't want it to be twisted, your elastic. So if it starts to feel kind of twisted, just go back to the point where you feel a twist and just start to flatten it again. And usually it's not a twist, usually it's kind of just become folded a little bit on itself. There we go. Let me pull out this other end. Okay, like that. Whoops, I pulled that too much. It kind of folded up on me. Let's overlap these two. I'm overlapping them about a couple inches. And before we sew anything in place, let's see, I'm gonna try this thing on. Right here, you probably didn't think I was gonna do that with you, did you? Let's put it on right over my dress, if I can. Okay, let's see how this is looking. I wanna make sure that it fits right. Oh, that fits really well. Okay, I like the tightness of it. I probably would wear it with the shirt tucked in, so that's gonna work great. Okay, now we are going to sew these closed. Let's come back to our machine. Okay, pull these out a little bit so that we can sew them without sewing onto the skirt. And I am going to sew these ends together. I like to use a zigzag stitch here, so I can do that right here on my machine. I just think a zigzag allows the elastic to pull a little bit because it's a stitch that stretches with the fabric. Then I'm gonna come under here. I'm gonna sew a zigzag. And then I'm gonna sew a second line just to make sure everything is nice and secure. Just do a forward and back stitch a few times. Then let's do the same thing with the other elastic. Okay, now you wanna go back to your straight stitch and then let's sew the casing closed. Let's do the top one first. And you just wanna start right where you left off, making sure that you're not sewing on any of the elastics. So try to feel that with your fingers. And you can kind of pull the fabric so that it gets straight and not gathered. Okay, and then sew the other one. There we go. Our waistband looks really cute. I love how you can see all these little gathers. And one last thing I want to do to our waistband, I feel like this is a really key part, is that I'd like to press it. And if you like it more poofy like this, leave it. But I really love, I feel like this is kind of a little bit of magic here. I spray it with some water, or you could use steam, and then just give it a really firm press. And it just kind of makes all those folds. I feel like it looks a little more professional, like what I see in stores. I just like the look of it. So spray, press, and I even like to press these folds of the top of the skirt. Just kind of press them really flat. It will just make it look, you know, less poofy, I guess. Okay. There we go. That looks awesome. I love that. Okay, we just need to hem our skirt and then we're done. Love it. Okay, I left the selvage on my skirt, so technically I could just fold that under and sew it in place, but you might not have that on your skirt. So we are going to fold this over about 1/4 inch to create a small casing again, all the way around. And then we're gonna fold it over another 1/4 inch. Now, if you want a chunkier hem than that, go for it. I didn't have a lot of length left on my fabric, so I'm just gonna do a very small, narrow hem, 1/4 inch 1/4 inch. So keep pressing and then we'll sew it in place. Start by increasing your stitch length again for your hem, just so you can get a wider stitch. And then I'm sewing close to the edge here, like 1/8 of an inch. Just stitch all the way around. Our hem is all done. Let's see how it looks. There is our paper bag skirt. Wasn't that a cinch to make? I said it was gonna be intermediate, but I felt like you did that like a pro. This is so fun. I am excited to wear this. I wanna make more. I'm gonna wear them all summer, all winter. Anyway, I hope you love it. I hope you enjoy sewing for yourself. It's so exciting and fulfilling to do. So, for more ideas and tutorials, you can visit my website, madeeveryday.com. And for all your sewing machine needs and for the Baby Lock Brilliant Machine, head to babylock.com, where it's all for the love of sewing. Have a great day. Bye. We're gonna angle our fabric a little at the sides, and I want to do that again. Okay.